So science tells us we are facing something that humans have never had to tackle. It's an unprecedented challenge. But humans are ingenious. They have changed ever since humans have started to show up on the surface of this earth. They have changed and they have adapted, and they have been ingenious in, transforming their societies in very short time. And we've seen the reaction to the current pandemic as an interesting sign of how quickly we can change. But with climate change, we are facing something that is of a scope that we've never had to deal with. And we can only hope that we can tackle this challenge if we listen to science, if we base our decisions on the scientific input that we're getting, on the Paris Agreement, and only if we work together collectively. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Jona David. I'm 14 and I go to St. Bede's School here in Cambridge. I'm a deputy chair for the Eco-Council and have been involved for just over a year now. I want to start off by saying a massive thank you to everyone who's been involved in helping to set this up today, to everyone who is speaking, and to everyone who's come here to listen and learn. This is a very difficult time for each of us, and I'm not sure if I'm alone in this, but it's certainly been difficult to find hope and inspiration recently under the current circumstances. The climate emergency is already a crisis in itself, and sometimes it's difficult to find hope within it when we seem to always be told another shocking statistic that reminds us we don't have long left to solve this. But what we have to remember is that in actuality, the whole point of this movement is hope. If we don't think about the crisis having a positive outcome, then what are we really fighting for? Our whole motive is to build a better future, and I think that's relevant right now as well. We have to try our very best to have hope and stay positive, no matter how dark the future may seem. On that note, I want to briefly talk about the Paris Agreement. Essentially, the Paris Agreement was designed to strengthen global response to the threat of the climate crisis by keeping the global temperature rise within this century well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And in addition to pursue efforts to limit temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. It attempts to limit global temperature rise by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and provide a framework for transparency, accountability, and the achievement of more ambitious targets. It may sound obvious, but the reason this is also important is because humans are the cause of global warming, yet it endangers our health and all the other animals who inhabit this planet. And now, global warming can only be mitigated with global action. It's important to remember the Paris Agreement isn't static. Instead, it's designed to boost countries' national efforts over time, meaning that current commitments represent the floor, not the ceiling, of climate change ambition. The heavy lifting, reining in emissions even further by 2030 and 2050, still need to be done, and the Accord provides the tools to ensure that that can happen. So you may be thinking, how exactly does this affect me? Well, so we hope the agreement holds politicians as well as citizens to a standard that ensures the crisis is at the forefront of this generation. Unfortunately, though, this is not always the case, and this leads me on to my next topic, local action. Often, the older generations of this planet prefer to leave this emergency to the politicians, and now to us. And therefore, this is one of the reasons local action is so important. The crisis can really only be reversed if enough people take this seriously enough and take action. That's why it's so important that we educate each other and make sure our voices are heard. It's why it's so important that when it's safe for us to, again, we attend strikes, events, die-ins, fundraisers, whatever it may be. It's why it's so important that we continue to have eco-councils in and out of school, that we invite friends and always share event information. But during this time, perhaps action seems harder. We can't attend things physically, but that doesn't mean our power should be suppressed in any way. In fact, you are already taking actions by attending this seminar. So what further can you do? While stuck in the house, time is your friend. Choose to focus on the environment friendliness of your diet. Consider planting a garden or cooking more resourcefully. Enjoy the natural light and weather we've had recently, and keep yourself fit and active. Consider using this time to call or write to a local politician and push for a certain part of this emergency that you want to be addressed locally. In Cambridge, this could be, for example, flooding, or chalk rivers, or overdevelopment of housing or pollution. If you're not in Cambridge, spend time researching issues relevant to your area. Obviously, right now your local politicians could be busy attending to the immediate needs and concerns of their constituents. However, it's still important to tie together the possible links to climate change and this pandemic, and therefore the need for action. Waiting could weaken the link and an argument connecting the pandemic and climate change. Use this time to talk to a friend about the crisis, to answer or ask questions, and to share information. And so you see, all of this really is in the light of the Paris Agreement. All of this is effective. We cannot be silenced, and we are stronger together. Thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of the seminar.
Hello. It's brilliant to see so many people online here today standing up for our future. My name is Jona David. I'm a Year 9 at Winchester College, and I was a founding member of the Cambridge Schools Eco-Councillor, as well as a United Nations child author, with my 4th book being on climate change. We're all here to show that even as our world is placed in an emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we must and will stand up for our planet. We need to make sure that our leaders remember and take action to deal with the urgent threat climate change poses. According to the IPCC 1.5 degrees report and the new ecosystems assessment, if we let climate change get worse, then many forests, mountain, and wetland ecosystems will be lost forever. If we continue our inaction, sea levels will rise, heat waves will get worse, and the pandemics will become more common, destroying the lives of people like us all over the world. We can't let this happen. Climate change is real, dangerous, and urgent, and we have to speak out now, locally and globally, to stop it from getting worse. This is still a climate emergency. Even though we can't vote, as youth, we already face the terrible climate change impacts worldwide, and we will face far, far worse in the future. This is horribly unfair. It is a violation of climate justice. But we are standing up together. The Eco-Council here in Cambridge has already been striking for over a year now, continuing even in these uncertain times with online strikes, with different schools from all over Cambridge. They have teamed up to help make sessions like these possible. They're demanding that every school prepares their students for the modern world, educating everyone on ways to tackle climate change right now. We are demanding that our decision makers in Shire Hall, in the City Council, and at National Parliament and internationally find real solutions and implement them today. We need action at all levels, everywhere. If we want to stop the heat waves, wildfires, droughts, and pandemics, we must scale up our understanding, our efforts, and our voices. We must make sure our leaders tackle the climate crisis with the same strength and unity that they have shown us through the current crisis. We must speak truth to power. Our message is simple. The risks are real. Climate change could cost us everything. If we can't keep warming below 1.5 degrees and achieve the Global Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, in the next 10 years, the impacts will be irreversible. When it comes to the Earth, our own survival and the survival of all future generations is at stake. It's urgent. We must act now, not just for children today, but for the climate future we all want. As many of you know, we've agreed to an updated Cambridgeshire Climate Emergency Declaration and Action Plan. For those who have not joined us before or are thinking of getting more involved, we're sharing the main messages here today. This is what we stand for. Our Climate Emergency Declaration explains how the science is clear, that CO2 levels are higher than they have been for nearly 1 million years, with the average global temperature increasing. Oceans are rising and becoming more acidic, wildfires are raging, and extinction rates are nearly 1,000 times higher than they should be. We need to change our lives and systems immediately, or face an unimaginable future of heat waves, floods, extreme weather, forest fires, crop failures, wars over land, food, and water resources. The real risk of our own extinction. This is a climate emergency. We are calling all local schools, city councils, and county councils, as well as national and international parliaments and governments, to help us save our planet, our future, and the future of generations to come, by acting on the climate emergencies that they are declaring immediately. We are especially calling on to the Secretary of State for the Environment to immediately create a national Eco-Council for children and youth to have a voice in decision-making that concerns us, as committed in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We are calling on our City Council and Shire Council to create a Citizens Climate Assembly and Youth Advisory Group so that children and youth can raise our voices in the decision-making on the important actions that are needed. We have many ideas for actions. For school action plan ideas, in our schools and college, we can take action through holding climate assemblies to educate ourselves, teaching about carbon footprints and how to reduce them, implementing ecosystem education, adopting eco-codes and becoming eco-schools, serving only sustainable lunches, showing updated Earth data to all students weekly, reaching carbon neutrality in every school, and planting for the planet. We call on our town council and county councils to create a citizens assembly and a kids and youth advisory council to commit to carbon neutrality well before 2030, to ensure local climate finance, to support renewables, to implement the Paris Agreement, to make local green transport free, and to plan for the planet. Finally, we are calling on our national decision makers to make the UK a climate leader in science, law, and policy, to move to 100% carbon-free electricity and heat production, to change our food and agriculture systems quickly, and to make national and international transport less unsustainable, as well as supporting only climate-smart consumption, and to help make all schools, colleges, and universities more eco-friendly, and to support the creation of local eco-councils across the UK. We hope that you will help us to save our climate, and with it, our planet and our future. Thank you.